Ready to hit the pause button on your parenting fails? Ready to feel better about your parenting? Welcome to Parenting Pause, the podcast, where all of you is welcome and where you can listen in on how other parents became the parents they always dreamed of being. I'm Leslie Potter, the founder of the Pure Joy Parenting Way. I'm a mother, a parenting coach, and a fellow traveler on this journey to wake up in our parenting. And I believe together we can make this a better world for ourselves and our kiddos. In this episode, I welcome Lisa, who is the mom of two girls, almost 11 and 15. Her younger daughter is highly sensitive and expresses her feelings intensely, which was a huge trigger for Lisa. Hello, love. I'm so happy that you could join me today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, this is a topic that I haven't talked very much about, so it'll be great for a lot of the mamas to hear of what this was like having a highly sensitive child.
Well, it started very young for her. She was sensitive when she came out. The first 9 months of her life, she had really bad reflux. And so from the beginning, it was very intense, every feeling in her body. And it brought up a lot for me personally about how I could stay present with that intensity, even when I didn't know how to fix it or how to comfort her. And to be with her expression of it really opened up a trigger for me around how I never really did express my sensitivity and didn't realize I was as sensitive as she was expressing.
And I know you were such a conscious mama and had wanted to create an environment that was so supportive for your daughter. So I'm curious as how that was for you when you felt like no matter what you did, it wasn't fixing that problem.
Oh, I wanted to do it right so badly. I wanted to get it right. I wanted to be so mindful and so kind and patient. And, it really just didn't look like that. I was focusing on trying to find that for her. But what was really happening was I was really triggered and beating myself up about how I couldn't meet her sensitivity. And I was really judging my own impatience and ineffectiveness and hopelessness. And so I really turned that inward, which of course made me less effective of being present with her. And I couldn't really listen to her because I was distracted by wanting to soothe her, but I couldn't soothe myself.
Yeah, that's such a huge one, isn't it? As mamas, especially when we're trying to be more conscious, we keep thinking that if we can just give our children what they need, but we start to realize that maybe we haven't given it to ourselves.
Yeah, and I didn't know it's what I needed. And I thought that I really was listening to her. And, with a sensitive child, they scream loudest. It's unnerving.
I think that's a huge one
Um,
that people don't talk about very much, even on the sensing level of your ears, right? I mean, it's just so disturbing to your sensitivity, I would imagine.
right. And so then the challenge becomes not, totally shutting down and shutting out and becoming numb to it or projecting this is a bad child, like something's wrong with them. I know that when she got into her tantrum phases, I was so exhausted and depleted already that I didn't have any access to my reserves. And so I really shut her out. And then she would get louder and her tantrums would get more intense. And it was overwhelming to my sensitive self.
Yeah, I remember when I first met you, how intense it was, and how, everybody was kind of telling you, well, just do this and just take care of yourself and take a bath and get a massage. And I remember looking at your face like you wanted to murder that person that was telling you that. It was kind of like no one got it, right? And everybody, I think this happens to mamas. Everybody was looking at to you like, well, if you would just get that massage and take a bath, it would just change. So
Mhm.
maybe you could talk about you've been in my longest group that we've had, almost 10 years, and maybe you could speak about what that was like to enter into a circle where you could just start to be seen and heard.
Yeah, well, that was, a big transition point for me because I had been operating under this idea that ultimately I was responsible for her experience. And so when other people would tell me, oh, well, you should just take a bath, or just relax, oh, you're stressed, oh, take care of yourself, it confirmed my story that I'm responsible for her behavior. So if I could just take care of my stress and my reaction, it was me being responsible again. And to be able to let go of that hypervigilance and that striving, and to be able to just lean into what felt like an actual hug, a real hug of other moms who really understood and could feel my sensitivity and just help me see that my sensitivity was triggered. It was such a comfort, and I was able to lean in and find kindness to my sensitive one, and that she doesn't need to feel responsible for other people's experiences.
You begin to find moments of relaxation and begin to
Mm-hmm.
find that you could start to back off a little bit from that responsibility, just as an invitation, as you say. And what happened next for you?
Well, I think the first thing that happened was I was able to, it's like I was able to hear her. It was like she was kind of screaming so loud, and she was so intensely desperate to be heard. And when I felt heard and I found a place of kindness from my sensitivity to even be around her when she was in a tantrum, which I couldn't physically do a lot of the times, I was able to actually just show up for her and start to learn how to take care of myself in that, so that I could meet her, so that I could really hear her without having a breakdown myself. That process has unfolded in a development for years, but the first step was for me to just show up for the moment and know that it was okay to take care of myself, which maybe would mean literally just stepping into the other room, that I wasn't abandoning her. I couldn't hear her and be with her, but I would let her know that I was there. And that was a difficult transition at first, but when I got clear within myself that I wasn't blocking her out, I wasn't running away, and I also wasn't suppressing her expression and telling her not to be sensitive or not to, behave in the way she was behaving, then she didn't need to scream so loud.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, but it could only come from this place of I was doing it really to meet her with kindness and meet myself with kindness. If I was, anytime I would do it like with a manipulative edge, like, okay, if I can just pretend I'm tolerating this, then maybe she'll be quiet, maybe she'll calm down, maybe she will get a thicker skin, and maybe she won't be so sensitive. Anytime I would come in with that impatience and intolerance for sensitivity as it was, it would backfire. It was like she could feel it. She's that sensitive. She's that sensitive that she could feel it. And I realized, wow, I'm that sensitive that I couldn't even fool myself.
Well, that was what I got to witness for you, was to hear how loud your cry was, and for
Yeah.
you to be willing to share that with the mamas. And I just had the joy of witnessing that in you the other day, that you were so willing
Mm.
to share your intensity, your sensitivity, and to just come into welcome arms. It was so powerful. You had to repress that and been so responsible and so together from your childhood and taking care of everyone else and making sure everyone was okay, that you had never
Yeah.
really gotten to truly express and be seen and heard.
And when I got that she acted out and tantrumed and fell apart and kicked and screamed and everything, when I got that she would do that at home, when she got home, I got that, oh, because she feels safe. She feels safe enough to fall apart. And I never felt that. And so it was very threatening to me to be witness to her express herself in that intense of a way. And when I got that she felt safe enough to fall apart at home, and that I could be the arms, the welcoming, unconditional arms that she could fall into, then it just softened me and it softened her. And it's not, she's still sensitive,
Right.
but her expression of it is so much softer because she does feel held and she feels safe, and it cycles through much more quickly as it does with my own sensitivity and expression. And it's amazing what happens when what we think is creating a safe environment is different than feeling safety and finding my safe seat, that practice that we've been doing for years.
Years.
It's foundational. It works. I need that practice because it's not inherent in my being. I didn't know it. So I practice and I practice and I practice, and it's so sweet. It's so nice to have a home base to go back to within myself, a safe space.
Well, it's so beautiful as you're describing this, because our children, they rely on us to metabolize and digest their experience for them until they're able to,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're describing in highly sensitive children, it's a very chaotic, kind of crazy experience being in this society, right? And in this world. I talk with a lot of parents that have sensitive children that just want their kids to be normal. Well, they are normal for their regulatory system. And it's just that marker. I know it's that high sensitivity makes you so empathic and so creative, and so just there's so many goodies to the other side of that. And children, when they're that highly sensitive, need their parents to help metabolize and digest those experiences, which you're talking about when she would come home. And since you didn't
Yeah.
have that, experience as a child, you didn't have someone to do that for you. You began to get very rigid inside your own being, and you felt more than someone helping you digest it, you felt responsible for it. And that was where your rigidity came, is that you weren't really able to metabolize. You just kept taking it in, and thinking that this is all my fault. I've got to do all of this. As the Circle of Mamas, we began to help you metabolize your experience. We were able to hold that with you and let you know that experience was normal for a highly sensitive human being.
Yeah, it didn't feel normal. It didn't feel okay. And just like it didn't feel okay that she was reacting in that way. plenty of people wanted to fix her, and I wanted to. I wanted to as well. If I could just get her to stop being so sensitive, if I could just make the environment comfortable enough, it's like walking on eggshells. We don't want to wake the tantrum monster. It's like really delicate territory.
Yeah, and then what were the consequences to you when you began to walk on eggshells all the time? I mean, what did you notice then began to happen inside?
Well, that was just another layer of repression, and feeling responsible.
Kind of kicked you back into your childhood strategies, it sounds like.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that you couldn't
Yep.
show up in your high sensitivity and your need and include yourself, it sounds like.
No. Right. Definitely couldn't include myself. No.
So I want to bring that because I know that was another part of your journey that we began to work with very deeply is once you begin to own your sensitivity and have it seen and heard and begin to have a place where you could bring it and have it held. I know that you begin to move into beginning to recognize that you had a need, right? And I think
Mhm.
this can be really challenging for children that I know for you in your early experience, you kind of had to be the mama for your mama. So you
Mhm.
had to be the adult very early, which meant that you had many, many needs, but they weren't being attended to. So I
Mhm.
know another part of the journey as we begin to open that door for you, that you had to begin to include yourself in your family, in the relationship, especially your highly sensitive daughter was kind of reflecting that for you, that it was time for you to scream a little louder, not in a childlike way to use your adult capacities, but for you to scream a little louder from the inside that you mattered also. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that reminds me of that is, I had no realization until I had children. I had no idea of how terrifying transitions were for me. And then I had children, and my kids would show up with these really difficult transitions. And it could be the simplest thing, getting out the door to preschool, not putting their shoes on, not easily transitioning from one activity to another. And so much rage came up for me, so much intense feelings of out of control, and I didn't even know they were there. I didn't even know that I hadn't had an opportunity to express my discomfort in transitions and my feelings of lack of control. So I got to work through that when my kids were younger. Obviously I'm working through it again on new levels as they're aging, but I really got to look at myself and start to unpack and uncover my anxiety around, for instance, transitioning from one thing to the next. And that was a big, big aha for me. Like if I was starting a new job or new school program, I couldn't sleep the night before. I'd feel nauseous and I'd have bad dreams. And, I'm an adult. You'd think I'd be over this by now. But I finally realized that they were enacting out what I couldn't realize was still hard for me.
And what did that look like when you began to acknowledge the needs for a gentle transition or whatever that transition was? What did that look like on a behavioral level when you began to include yourself instead of just trying to, make sure your girls were perfect by having the right food and having all the things that they needed to make that transition?
Yeah.
What
Well,
that look like?
what it looked like for myself is I had to offer kindness to myself, and what that looked like was really, really letting go of the expectation of how it was going to turn out, which was just terrifying for me. It's like, okay,
Oh,
well, maybe we won't leave the house on time. Maybe we won't even show up to something that we have to show up for. I mean, the intensity of the pressure I put on myself to do it right increased the stress of getting it right. And I just had to let go, I had to let it all go, and then realize, oh, well, we're choosing to do this, and I'm going to be kind to myself and give myself space and really become present. And it's that whole like quality time as opposed to quantity. Like if I could really just sit on the floor with my toddler for one whole minute, which felt like eternity when we were running late. But if I could sit on the floor with my toddler for one whole minute as we were getting our shoes on and really be present, then that affording that kindness to be present was really a kindness to myself, to not get wrapped up in the expectation of how it was going to turn out. And it was so bizarre because it was like magic. Oh, like getting them to sleep. Oh, the bedtime struggle, right? I mean, for years, I just, I'd get so mad. Fine, you're not going to go to sleep. I need to. And I'd go in my room, slam the door, and, and I'd throw my tantrum, and putting on an act like I'm taking care of myself. But for years, it was such a struggle until I just let go of the expectation that it needed to look a certain way, and I could show up for 5 whole minutes, sincerely present to myself and my exhaustion and my sensitivity and my desperation, and I could just show up and just share in that moment of challenge, of transition, right? From daytime to sleep. Once again, a transition. I could show up and just spend 5 minutes of quality time with my sensitivity and my child's sensitivity. And then it just regulated both of our nervous systems.
So beautiful as you describe this, because I always like to tell people, rules is an excuse not to be present, right? So I feel like when we make these strict like rules, like we have to be in bed by 9 o'clock and we have to do this and we have to do that, it's that desire, as you say, for control. But you're describing so beautifully, if I can release that need for control, I can actually show up and be present, first of all, with myself and then with my child.
And for a long time, I was trying to figure out how to say that, how to do it. But it really wasn't about what I was saying, like convincing them. Okay, I'm here. I'm tired too. I'm more tired than you are. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to model this for you. It was when I would really show up energetically, even desperate and tired and just totally at my wit's end. But to be authentic in that, being present with that, and not using it to try to manipulate the other person to take care of me. It's like, no, I can take care of myself in just collapsing in this moment, but I'll be present.
Well, that's such a beautiful thing that we learn in this process, and it takes time. Again, I don't want people to think this is a quick fix, but we begin to build this adult part of us that realizes we do have the capacity to still show up even when we're tired. We do have the capacity to show up even when we're angry or even when we're disappointed, that we can tolerate those feeling states and include ourselves completely in that present moment, which is a safe base for our children then. It does show them how they can show up. It's like, oh, it's okay for you to show up with whatever is arising, not with good
Right.
behavior, not with taking care of me, not with how you should be. Oh, you are welcome to show up who you are in this moment.
Yeah, bring all of it. And when I could bring all of my experience, then I could meet, especially my youngest, my sensitive one, then I could meet her in all of her experience, and I wasn't pushing it away.
I just so deeply appreciate you sitting with me all these years and opening your heart and your being to you. It's so beautiful.
It's really sweet work, and what a gift to let go of the trying and just remember how to be in practice. So thank you.
Thank you to Lisa for sitting down with me today to share her story around learning to love her sensitive spirit, which ended up supporting her and loving her daughters. Parenting Paused is produced by Kim Paletti at Sound Mind Productions. Music by Jan Perchik. You can find the show notes at www.purejoyparenting.com, where you'll get access to the foundational practice of Pure Joy, the safe seat, and find links to relevant topics, as well as a transcription of the show. And if this work inspires you and you would like to practice, come join us in my free Pure Joy Parenting Practice group. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here today and listening to the Parenting Pause podcast, your partner and support in finding the joy in yourself and with your children. And remember, if you're about to scream, pause.